I'd wake up to the sound of someone walking up the stairs. I'm still getting chills. Hi, I'm Luca, and normally I make videos about what it's like to live as a trans person with Tourette's and ADHD. But 2 days ago I got my T shot. I get one every 10 weeks and they get me flustered and I can't think. And I've been watching Miles McKenna videos all morning, especially about how he grew up in a house that was haunted. And I kept thinking about my haunted house experience. I don't know, I don't feel like I can make a lot of sense talking about anything informative. So I'm just going to tell you my haunted house story. And I know Halloween is over, but I'm a goth at heart. Halloween is every day, so strap in. I don't expect you to believe this. I'm not even sure if I believe this, but it's what happened, it's what we experienced. So where do I start? So I'm Dutch, right? I grew up in the Netherlands. My parents divorced when I was 2. So I've moved around a lot with my entire family on both sides. And at some point, my mother, my stepdad, my brother, who is 1.5 years younger than me, and two of my youngest brothers, who were still literally babies at that time, we moved to an old farm in the middle of the Bible Belt in the Netherlands. And that was a weird house. I looked up some old pictures of it. That house was scary. I don't know. I mean, I'm Dutch. I'm used to living in old houses, but that house was weird. The family that lived there before was the family that had always lived there for generations. We got that farm with everything still in it. Like there were still slippers under the bed. It was weird. It was a weird house. And it was still an actual functional farm. We're not farmers. My mother's an artist and they wanted to remodel the farm so she could have an art studio and an art gallery and have the entire family living there. Again, 4 children. Because the old farm, it was so old, it had to be completely rebuilt. So the entire family, so 6 of us, moved into the milker's house. So it's like a small house right next to the actual farmhouse and the farm. It's like a small guest house that the milker would go and live. So that's where we moved into. It was 2 rooms. So my baby brothers, they slept in cribs in the hallway. My mother and stepdad slept on a pull-out sofa in a very small living room. And me and my brother slept in the bedroom upstairs. That room was weird. It was very dark. It had dark wooden walls. I don't know, it had a strange vibe. So then construction started. We lived on the other side in that small house, and stuff started to get weird. We'd find weird things. Like there were mason jars of meat in the basement, just dozens of them, just very old meat floating around. Just weird stuff we'd find. But you know, it's an old farm, many generations, who knows, maybe that's normal. But then stuff started to happen, right? We were laying in bed, so my brother and I, in that tiny bedroom upstairs, I'd wake up to the sound of someone walking up the stairs, just like 5 steps halfway up the stairs, stopping and starting over. And I would think that that's my mom trying to scare us, because that's something that she does sometimes. That's another story. But it didn't sound like my mom, and she denied it. It didn't sound, my mother is not a big woman, and it sounded like a heavy man. And it sounded like wood on wood. They were wooden stairs, and it sounded like those wood clogs that we have in the Netherlands that especially farmers wear, going up the stairs, stopping, and just starting back over. And that would happen a lot of times, but you know, you're young, you're still halfway asleep, so must be a dream, right? Eventually, The construction of the rest of the house progressed, so we moved in there, got our own room. But the more we started to change the house, the more stuff started to get really strange. Like, you'd hear children crying, we'd see stuff in the mirrors, you'd stand in the hallway and someone would just grab you or push you, like physically, you'd move. I'd wake up very early to go to school. I'd take the bus to the nearby city to go to school. So I'd be awake, before everyone else was. And I'd wake up, I'd go to the kitchen, put on the lights, open the curtains, go to the toilet, come back, and the curtains were closed and the lights were off. And that would happen again and again. It wasn't just us that experienced that, because it wasn't just, my teenage imagination. Everyone in my family had these things, and even friends would come over and be like, oh, who's that? I saw someone standing next to the shed. Who was that? Is that one of your brothers? Is that your stepdad? I'm like, no, we see him too sometimes. He's just here. And we'd even get used to it, but no one wanted to be alone in that house. Most of those things weren't that scary, but that bedroom in the guest house, the old milker's house, that was a room that nobody wanted to go to. Even though we didn't really want to admit that, of course. We're Dutch, we're very down to earth. So eventually we got au pairs, live-in nannies that come from abroad, and they have an exchange project. And my younger brothers, who were 2, 3, 4 at the time, could learn English, and they would live in the guest house, the old milker's house. That was all remodeled at the time, so they'd have their own living room, a kitchen, a bathroom, and upstairs their bedroom. And we had 3 au pairs over a couple of years, and all of them, and we never told them about any of these things, and I never told them about what I experienced when I was 12. All of them, after 2 weeks, would stop sleeping in that bedroom and just sleep in the living room, because they hear at night footsteps going up the stairs, the wooden clogs going up the wooden stairs, even though by then we'd put a thick carpet on those stairs. So it didn't make sense. Eventually, as we started tearing down some of the sheds, stuff just got worse. And even though most of it, strangely enough, wasn't scary because you get used to it somehow, we'd even talk to, the ghosts or whatever it was. We'd appreciate that they were there. At some point, it started intervening in our lives. You just couldn't do stuff because doors would shut, you get pushed over, and then the dogs, my family's always had dogs, farm dogs. So they're usually just outside roaming around when they only come inside to eat or sleep or cuddle, and they're really mellow and, the good old boys. But sometimes they get all frantic and just run to the guest house, run upstairs, and start barking at the ceiling, just one spot at the ceiling. And they just kept doing that. And that was weird, right? So at some point, my mother got this paranormal investigator. I didn't know how I had to feel about that, even though I experienced those things. Even my stepdad, who is the most skeptic person, the most Dutch down-to-earth person you can imagine, he didn't really like the idea of getting a paranormal investigator into our house, but even he acknowledged that stuff was happening, even though he didn't want to make any comments on what that actually meant. So we got that person into the house, but we made a deal that we were not going to say anything about stuff that we were actually experiencing, because of course they could, if it was all, a scam, build onto that. And, why not? We could always try. So that woman, she came in and she just walked around, and the weird thing, so we would smell, I don't think I mentioned this, so we used to hear babies crying and the smell of cigars. And she would just point to she would just point to certain spots in the house and say, I can see a child there. I can smell the cigars there. It's like, she could not have known that. So that was already weird. But then she went to the guest house and she walked upstairs, and halfway she stopped and she said, this is where he would listen. I'm still getting chills. And then she walked to the bedroom and she stopped in the middle of the room and she pointed at the spot that the dogs would be barking at, and she said, and this is where he hung himself. So yeah, that's what happened. Oh my God, I literally got chills. No, you can't see that, can you? So after that, she told us that the ghost that we were hearing was one of the old farmers, one of the grandpas that didn't want us moving in and changing his house. He felt that he was pushed out of his family home. And I don't know what I think of that, but he was supposed to be the guy that smoked the cigars and liked drinking whiskey, something like that. So my mother put cigars in every room and a little bottle of whiskey. And it seemed to work, so that's weird. And for the little child, the little boy, that has a whole other backstory that I'm not even sure if I want to tell on the internet, because it's really dark. But we put like little stuffed animals in different rooms. And it seems so weird now that we actually did that, and that the entire family was just, okay, sure, you put the cigars here for the old for the old farmer that still roams around here. But it seemed to work. At this moment, my family still lives there. By now, the entire house, everything has been torn down, rebuilt. I mean, the shell of the house is still there, but there's nothing the same color, the same room as it used to be. And since they tore down like the last shed, everything's just calmed down a lot. But there's still boxes of cigars in many rooms in the house. And yeah, and even still, when I go there for a birthday or anything, and I sleep over, I'll still cover up the mirror before I go to sleep. And I feel so silly for doing it, but there's no way I could go to sleep there facing a mirror, knowing that when I wake up, I could just re-experience what I did back then. It's weird. It's so strange. I don't know what the actual truth behind it is, how that happens, but it happened. Yeah. And that's one of the main stories of one of the ghosts in one of the houses I lived in. There were other ghosts, there were other stories, other houses, but I didn't want to have this story drag out for too long. So what do you think? Are ghosts real? Have you ever experienced anything like this? Has that changed your perspective on these things? I don't know. Would you like me to tell stories of the other ghosts? Some of them were just really fun. They're really fun stories. It's like they kind of follow us around. Leave a comment. Tell me what you think. If you have a cool ghost story, leave them in the comments below. I love reading that stuff. I'm a creepypasta fan, for real. Whether it's real or not, honestly, I just love reading that stuff. So please leave a comment if you have them. So if you want me to talk about the other ghosts in other houses, or if you're actually interested in Tourette's and ADHD and trans stuff, please consider subscribing, and so you'll get notified when I upload again. I upload weekly. And yeah, I hope you have a great week. I love you all so much. Bye.